So, tell me something terrible. We can't start now.
No, I got the burps.
Got out of the way. Okay. Dog seems content. New mic stands are mic standing. Okay. Sorry.
Mic standing a little too hard?
I tightened this little knobber. A little too tough. Anyway.
Okay.
Podcasting. We used to do this a little bit.
Sometimes.
Do you want to do it? I got to get these headphones off. I can hear me, and that's terrible.
You.
I say that as people are willingly here listening to us. Anyway, yeah. Our first when was our last podcast? Did you ever look it up?
No.
I don't subscribe to us. People should. Definitely. I don't. It's been like a year, I would say, roughly.
Yeah, it was before the bird died. Because the bird died. We should definitely start recording.
Do you want to take a guess?
I would say probably almost exactly a year.
May 21st, 2024.
So literally 2 weeks before the bird died.
Also, yeah, almost a year, like within a month of a year.
Yeah. We were like, we should start recording this monthly. And then the bird died, and now I'm on treatment-resistant antidepressants.
Before that was May 9th, 2023. So this must be the time of year we get, although we were like cranking them out every 2 weeks or whatever, right up until then. So anyway, we are not going to make any promises as to how frequent these are going to come out. Monthly-ish is the goal.
Sure.
Hopefully. And then, yeah.
I was feeling a little uninspired.
Play it by ear. Also, these new mic stands. We're just trying to get our investment back here. I've hit with my beard twice already.
And it's not even long.
No, I know. That tells you it's right up in my face. So I don't know how that's going to do for audio quality. As the guy who edits this somewhat, I might listen for that. Anyway, what are we learning about?
Oh, wait, hold on. Hi, I'm Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And you're listening to Tell Me Something Terrible.
Yeah, you are. That's the first time I've heard the audio come out of the headphones, so I got a little too loud. Scooch us farther away from me.
Forgive us for being a little rusty.
Oh my God. I was like, what are you stopping for? We finally got this train rolling a little bit. But anyway.
Oh, this episode's for Doug.
For Doug. Doug is the best.
He is.
Doug knows who he is. We see Doug weekly-ish. And yeah, he's the reason we're like, we should really do that again.
Yeah.
So
shout out to Doug.
Shout out Doug, who gave us books today.
Yes. All right.
And then, is that today? Yeah, yes. It is Sunday. Yeah. Yeah, Doug gave us books today. We were not planning on recording this today. Just was happen chance. And you've been writing this for a couple weeks, right?
No, I cranked it out in 3 days.
Oh, because you're used to writing these weekly. And then bi-weekly. We start off 2 a week, 1 a week, once every 2 weeks. And now we're probably once a month, which is better than the once a year pace we've been on. So
yes, hopefully. I already have a topic for the next episode.
Oh, look at you go.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Maybe it'll be a slump to get me out of my severe depressive episode.
Yeah, some alcohol will help in an hour-long talking to me in an enclosed space.
Yes.
While the dog grumpily sulks in the corner.
You talk while I take a sip.
Oh, I don't have the paper. We've reached the you portion of the podcast.
All right.
Okay.
So this takes place in Australia.
I love Australia.
Yep.
Podcasts.
Do you really love Australia?
So one of the podcasts I listened to is the guy's based out of, or he was based out of Australia.
Is it The Proof?
It was, yeah.
Oh, super nerd. If you really want to know what Scott's into, you can go and listen to 4-hour podcasts.
No, his aren't 4 hours all the time. His are pretty normally an hour, but it's called The Proof. Yeah, it's all science-based stuff.
He's a nerd.
I like real science. It's fine. Anyway.
Okay. So, let's get started.
Okay.
Martin Bryant.
Very official. Martin Bryant.
Yes.
Okay.
He was the oldest of 2 children. He started out as an easy child, but as he aged, he became more difficult. He would escape the house, so his mother took to harnessing him and leashing him to a pile of toys to their porch.
Did you say leashing?
Yeah. Harness, leash, left him out on their porch, except they call them verandas in Australia because they're fancy.
Is that where a veranda comes from?
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
But she would just leave him on the porch leashed up with a pile of toys. And
Just
like,
get a baby gate, lady.
Yeah.
The leash is a lot.
No, he would escape.
Okay.
So she had to harness him. The neighbors were like,
At least it was a harness, not a collar, I suppose.
Yeah.
But still.
So eventually he became destructive and was slow to talk. He was bullied in school and didn't understand why other children didn't want to befriend him, as he took to hiding behind bushes and purposefully scaring others.
Okay.
Okay. Sound like a peach?
Yeah, sounds lovely.
Man, I'm so glad we have the kid we have.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't had to harness and leash her in like weeks.
So his parents took him to several psychologists who diagnosed him with varying issues such as hyperactivity, anger issues, and learning disabilities.
Okay.
By high school, he was injuring animals. And then his dad...
This is not a good... Yeah.
No, not a good start.
No.
Mm-mm. And then his dad got him his first airsoft gun.
Okay. Did you give a time frame for any of this yet?
This happened...
Is this recent-ish? I feel like airsoft guns are kind of more recent.
So, yes, it's recent-ish. I would say probably the 70s this was happening.
Okay.
So, maybe 80s. I don't know. I'm bad at math. So, he would shoot birds out of trees and then continually shoot them once they hit the ground.
Okay.
Yep. A little bit of overkill.
Yep.
He would shoot out toward the bay and then at passersby.
I thought you said pastors-by at first. I was like, wow.
Very specific.
He's sitting out outside a church just waiting. There's that pastor at pop, pop, pop.
So he dropped out of school at 16.
Mm-hmm.
His parents had him assessed again, and this time the specialist decided that he was schizophrenic and that his parents would have trouble with him the rest of their lives, and he would probably never hold down a job.
Okay.
But alas, he did manage to open a small business in lawn care.
Bird hunting? Oh,
No,
lawn care.
Lawn
Okay.
care,
Yep.
yeah. And this is where he met a woman named Helen. Helen is what we call a hoarder. She needed help maintaining her lawn at her mansion because she was some lotto heiress.
Okay.
Yeah, and she lived there with her mother and 14 dogs and over 40 cats.
Okay.
Yep.
The litter box situation.
What litter box situation?
Oh.
She's a hoarder.
Oh, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole house has kind of got litter box vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Helen and Martin became fast friends, going everywhere together. He eventually moved in with her after Helen's mother died.
Okay.
Helen bought a farm, and they moved in together out there where he would...
Oh, the first place was a mansion.
Yes. No, it really is
Yeah.
like a big, fancy
Yeah.
house.
Just masquerading as a weird domesticated farm.
Yes.
But now moving to a real farm.
Yes. Now they moved to an actual farm
Mhm.
where he would walk the property shooting his air gun at barking dogs and tourists.
Tourists?
Mhm.
Why is there tourists at their property?
Because they're in Australia.
Oh, like American tourists or
Yeah,
whatever.
or-
Worldly tourists?
Yeah. Worldly tourists.
Okay.
And then Helen died.
Okay.
Yep.
That took a turn.
Yep. So she made him the sole benefactor of her will. There's a really great podcast that's way more detailed about his backstory called Case File, which is one of the sources
Okay.
that I used. Is episode 45. So if you really want to dig into the nitty gritty of their relationship, I would suggest going and listening to that.
Okay.
And the guy's Australian, so it's fun to listen to because of
Yeah.
accents.
Yeah.
So he inherited upwards to $650,000 worth of assets.
That's a good chunk of change.
Yep. And he was now living on his own. But his parents
Except for all the cats. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So at some point,
He started killing the cats.
no, he didn't
Okay.
start killing the cats. At some point, so Helen and her mother lived together, and then at some point, the health department was called on them,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother, they were both like taken out, and the mother died like within 2 weeks of being taken out of the house, and she was forced to clean up the property. So his dad, Martin's dad, and him went and cleaned up the property, and they got rid of all the animals and stuff. Like I said,
Okay.
there's a whole backstory.
Gotcha. Okay.
I just didn't include it because
You didn't want a 2-hour-long podcast.
shallow dives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to verbatim like copy this other podcast.
Yeah.
So my other source was Wikipedia.
It's a good source.
Yeah.
It's very on brand.
So anyway, Helen then died, and she made him the sole benefactor of her will. He inherited upwards to $650,000 worth of assets. He's living on his own. His parents were smart enough to put his money in the trust for him.
Okay.
His dad became slowly depressed and then one day drove out to the farm when Martin was living at the mansion. It took 2 days to find Martin's father's body.
Okay.
Yeah. At first, Martin was suspected, but it was ultimately declared a suicide. So he had completed suicide at the
he went out to his
farm.
son's property to
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a weird move.
They found him at some like river or dam
Mhm.
with engine blocks tied around him.
Engine blocks?
Like a weighted belt.
Yeah.
With some sort of car part or something at like.
Okay. We're both such car people.
Yes.
But engine blocks. You just made it sound like he had two V8s tied to his ankles.
It probably wasn't engine blocks. No, there was something heavy tied around his waist with like toe straps.
Usually it's like wenches or something that have to move an engine. Anyway.
So, Martin blamed his father's spiral into depression on his failure to procure a business property called the Seascape Bed and Breakfast.
Okay.
So Martin ultimately sold the farm and moved into the mansion, behaving more erratically, threatening to shoot anyone that stepped onto the property.
With his airsoft or like real guns?
It didn't specify.
I just know he's had a love for airsoft in the 10 minutes I've known about Martin.
Yes. His airsoft gun procurement was the start of a fascination with all weaponry.
Okay. Yep.
So I would imagine it's probably with real guns at this point because he's in his 20s
sounds
by
like
now.
a real gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I used to play with airsoft guns and now I'm like, now I shoot stupid because I can't. I shoot very dumb. I can't use a sighted, like.
You also don't have schizophrenia, so
No.
there's you know.
I shoot very stupid.
Different trajectory. Yeah, you've mentioned.
I'm lucky I don't break a cheekbone, which is why I don't shoot guns.
Yeah.
Because I can't close the right eye in order to shoot right-handed.
You have to close your left. Yeah.
No, it's the correct eye in order to shoot right-handed.
What
it's
a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, so I don't shoot guns.
More of a grenade person.
Molotov cocktails.
There you go.
So Martin sold the farm, moved into the mansion, and he started behaving more erratically, threatening to shoot anyone that stepped onto the property. He started traveling extensively, but he would never stay on his planned trips, saying people were mean to him, and he only enjoyed the plane rides.
Which is the worst part of traveling.
Yes. Well, no, not really, because people are strapped in next to you and have to talk to you.
I mean, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, there's no, what are you going to do? Jump out the emergency exit?
Yeah, just awkward conversation is like his sweet spot, apparently.
Yeah, we just got lucky and have 3 people in our family, so we just take up one row.
Yeah.
And we don't have to share. It's great. Except for that one time that we got split up and I accidentally opened a bag of Cheetos on the lady next to me.
And I had to sit by myself and watched, what was that
A Man Named Otto?
A Man Named Otto. Do not watch that by yourself on a plane. Not a happy-go-lucky movie.
No.
Super fucking sad, actually.
So he loved his plane rides. He started wearing a gray linen suit and ascots, carrying a briefcase, etc.
Okay.
Alligator shoes.
I'm not mad about any of those fashion choices.
Yeah. Even the alligator shoes?
I mean, maybe the alligator shoes, but the gray suit, what did you say it was? Gray
linen suit?
Linen suit. Oh, it's very... Oh, he's in Australia. That's a wise choice. It's very breezy.
Yes.
The ascot.
Ascot.
Yeah.
Which we know.
Did he shave into a mustache too?
No. Wouldn't that be great?
I think so.
We know I've taken to the ascot. I was a big fan of wearing the bandana around my neck when we were on vacation.
Not just because of the fresh tattoo. You just like the fashion statement.
Yeah,
you haven't pulled it off since.
No, I don't have bandanas.
Oh, well, we'll have to go thrift you some.
So, by the mid 1990s, Martin got a new girlfriend named Petra and a job working at the Seascape Cottages.
Okay.
So he's changed his mind about his dislike for the new owners, who were named Nolene and David Martin.
Nolene?
Nolene.
Okay. It was well built.
Yep.
Nolene.
But Martin would argue with the Martins about the Seascape, so he was laid off, reigniting his hatred for the Martins.
Okay. That didn't take long.
No. By mid-April 1996, Martin and his girlfriend went to a sporting goods store where Martin bought a big sports bag, telling the clerk it needed to have strong handles so that it could carry a lot of ammunition.
Okay.
And then on April 27th, 1996...
I thought you were going to say a whole body.
No. No, not a body.
Oh, a body. Okay. A little foreshadowing.
On April 27th, 1996, we know we're getting serious when there's dates involved.
Mm-hmm.
Petra and Martin...
When these are coming straight out of police files? Yeah.
Yes. Petra and Martin went to his mom's house for dinner. They stopped at a nightclub and then headed home, where Martin proceeded to set his alarm for 6 a.m. the following Sunday, April 28th, something he never did.
Okay.
So he was
Not
not
a big
an
alarm clock guy.
No. The pair woke up, got ready. Petra headed out to visit his own parents and her own parents, and then Martin didn't mention his plans to her for that day.
Okay.
So he strapped his surfboard that he never used to his Volvo, which is a car he drove without a license, and put his newly acquired bag in the trunk of the car.
So many details.
Yes. He never got his license. He got the surfboard so that he could tell people that he was surfing, and he grew out his hair so it was like long and blonde. So he had the surfer and would go to the beach, but never get in the water.
He probably had an acoustic guitar for the same reasons. The hair, the acoustic guitar, just to tell people he was kind of into music, like, you know, like his dark artsy side.
He knew 3 chords and
yeah, he could play you, you know, Freebird or whatever.
And that's it.
Yeah. Wonderwall. That's the one.
Wonderwall's
the
one.
Yeah.
So he's headed out with his surfboard on his Volvo, with his bag in the trunk of the car. He headed to the Seascape Bed and Breakfast. He arrived after making several stops at the Seascape cottages about midday. A couple showed up as Martin was locking up and leaving, asking about seeing the cottages, and he told a lie about his parents being out and he couldn't show them. So the couple said he was rude and agitated, so they left feeling uneasy.
Okay.
The rest of this is pieced together by
eyewitness
reports. Yes.
Because everyone else is dead. This is getting so intense, I took my socks off.
Oh, this is getting serious. Sweaty feet over here.
This room's like a balmy 62 degrees, so it's not because it's hot in here either.
No, it is the coldest room in the house.
Yeah, intentionally.
So Martin headed out. He wound up heading toward Port Arthur, Tasmania, which is a historic town and former prison colony in Australia frequently visited by tourists, of which Martin had a problem with, particularly with Japanese tourists.
I thought you said a witch Martin had a problem with.
Of which?
Like, okay, but we enter a witch into this craziness. Nope, just Tasmania.
Just me.
Yeah.
So he had a problem with Japanese tourists in specific.
Okay.
So,
just like a xenophobe or like...
Yes,
okay.
Just a racist.
Yep.
Along the way, he stopped by a car that had overheated to help the couple out. He suggested they stop by the Broad Arrow Cafe in Port Arthur for a coffee, because everything about this plays out like a movie.
Okay.
At 1:10 p.m., Martin pulled up to the toll booth that let you into Port Arthur, drove down Jetty Road until he was at the Broad Arrow Cafe. He parked as close as he was allowed to the section of like car park, which is what they call parking lots there.
Okay.
So
Thanks for translating.
Next to the tourist buses.
Uh-huh.
So he sat in his car for a few moments, then got out, grabbed his giant sports bag, and headed into the cafe. Lunch was in full swing with about 60 people enjoying the view of the historical ruins the restaurant overlooked and waiting for the next ferry. Martin grabbed a tray of food, sat down, making racist comments and complaining about the lack of Japanese tourists and the lack of what he called WASPs, which stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, mostly of British descent. So he didn't like...
the ratio?
He didn't like the white people, like the English white people coming to Australia either.
Okay.
People did their best to ignore him.
As you would when there's a man just spewing hatred inside of a cafe at 1 p.m.
Yes.
Yep.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday, this post-church crowd and everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't know if Australia has a post-church crowd.
No idea. Just, yeah.
That might just be a Midwest thing.
Probably. Yeah.
So, and probably a Southern thing.
Yeah. 1:00, every restaurant on a Sunday. The worst people are usually there. Yeah. $3 tips just flying left and right.
So he got up and headed to a corner of the cafe, placing his bag on an unoccupied table. He took out I want you to guess what he took out.
Airsoft gun.
An AR-15.
Okay.
Every shooter's favorite.
Okay,
it's classic.
Not an airsoft.
Mm-mm.
No.
So he took out his AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. Just one.
Okay, for now.
For now. This had a 30-shot magazine. Within 4 seconds, he fired 5 shots, killing 3 people.
Okay.
Yep. He continued to shoot, aiming directly at people and injuring others with shrapnel and stray bullets. The shooting lasted less than 30 seconds, leaving at least 12 dead in the cafe. Quick, huh?
Yeah.
Semi-automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. He then moved to the attached gift shop, finding a group of 5 people huddled there, killing 3 of them and fatally shooting the 2 women working at the counter. One was a 17-year-old teen.
Mm-hmm.
In less than 2.5 minutes, Martin had showered the restaurant with 29 shots, killing 20 people and injuring 12.
That's a lot.
2.5 minutes.
Yep. Well, going from birds and an airsoft gun to an AR-15, yeah, that's
quite the escalation.
Mhm.
I debated on how much information I wanted to include. There's a literal blow-by-blow, no pun intended, listed on the Wikipedia page if you wanted a detailed list of names and how the victims died.
Uh-huh.
But let's just say that most were shot in the head or neck or chest. Some people were shot multiple times. There were people standing up and yelling, "No, not here," because Tasmania has the loosest gun laws in Australia at the time.
Okay.
And it's like our Texas.
Gotcha.
Some people shoved their loved ones under the table to protect themselves. Some people played dead. One person got shot and killed, and when another bullet went through someone else. The chaos goes on.
Yeah.
He then headed out of the Broad Arrow.
I'm glad you're easing us back into this with a nice, gentle, tell me something terrible. Not like 24 dead in the first 2 minutes. But yeah. Thanks for just chucking us in the deep end with no regard.
The last one was about cheese caves. So,
yeah.
I
was expecting like one step above that.
No.
Not probably the worst mass murder in Australia in the last years. Yeah.
It is the worst mass murder in Australia and one of the worst in the world.
It feels like it. And we're 2.5 minutes in.
So
he still got a giant bag of shit.
I still have a page and a half to go.
Great. I'm going to keep sipping this red wine.
So he then headed out of the Broad Arrow into the car park, setting his sights on the buses.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. He shot a bus driver and he shot into a group sheltering between the 2 buses, killing one and injuring another. He shot at a group trying to run, injuring 2 more. He then headed back to his car, switching out his AR-15 for a semi-automatic .308 self-loading rifle, which is a military-style weapon.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was going to say, but I have no...
All of these were legally obtained.
Okay.
So he came back with his .308. He pointed it toward the ruins in the cafe, firing indiscriminately. After taking a moment to himself in his car, he got back out and headed back toward the buses, killing a few more people.
Okay.
The first 000 call was placed at 1:32 p.m.
I'm assuming that's their 911.
Yes, which makes way more sense than 911. 911 are about as far away from each other as you could possibly get on the dial pad.
Yeah, but you can't...
0 is just... doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, but you can't butt dial it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So the first 000 call was placed at 1:32 from the information center behind the cafe when someone from the kitchen, when the shooting first happened at Broad Arrow.
This is mid-90s, so yeah, cell phones aren't as prevalent.
Yeah, she sprinted across a field to get to the information center. Yeah. So within minutes, more calls came flooding in. In the meantime, Martin got back to his car for his last time in the car park, firing at the ruins again, just for shits and gigs.
Yep.
He turned back up the jetty road and headed toward the toll booth. Along the way, he stopped shortly up the road next to a woman and her 2 daughters who were attempting to flee the scene. Assuming it was someone stopping to help, the mother stepped closer to the car where Martin then got out, grabbing her shoulder and shooting her, fatally.
Okay.
He then turned the gun on her 2 daughters, aged 6 and 9.
Jesus.
Yep.
Okay.
Martin fired into some bushes where some people were trying to hide, but thankfully he missed. He got back in his car, headed toward the toll booth again. He shot the toll booth attendant and then took aim at the driver and passengers of a gold BMW that was trying to turn around to flee.
Uh-huh.
Shooting the driver first and then pulling the passengers from the car and killing them too.
Jeez. Okay.
Yep.
This is great.
Mm-hmm. Martin took his belongings, the gun and ammunition, and a couple sets of handcuffs from his Volvo, transferring them into the trunk of a gold BMW, claiming the car was as his own now.
Okay, so just going full Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
Okay.
So he drove through the toll booth and headed back towards Seascape Bed and Breakfast Cottages.
Mm-hmm.
Martin stopped by a service station, cutting off a car. He attempted to pull the woman passenger from the car, but the man driving tried to fight back. So Martin pointed the gun at him and managed to get him locked in the trunk of the BMW. So now he has a hostage.
Okay, so the guy fought back, so he shoved him in the trunk of the car he just stole?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He doubled back and fatally shot the woman passenger. As he headed toward Seascape Cottages, he continued to shoot at passing cars, shooting more people.
Mm-hmm.
So he made it back to Seascape at 2 p.m., taking his hostage inside one of the cottages and handcuffing him to the banister of the stairs. Martin collected his guns and ammo from the BMW and then set it ablaze.
Okay.
Yep.
We don't need that anymore.
Nope. He's done with that car.
It feels like he doesn't have any intentions to leave this place.
So the police took 20 minutes to arrive on scene at Port Arthur.
Uh-huh.
The only 2 police officers on duty in that region were 19 miles away.
Oh, you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Okay.
So against policy, the pair split up, trying to cover more area in an attempt to find Martin.
All right.
Because they had no clue what else to do. They were like, fuck it, we're in a hurry.
Yep.
So the pair of officers were being updated via radio. So they met back up once they heard that he had left and headed to the Seascape bed and breakfast. And they arrived shortly after 2, spotting the BMW on fire.
Yeah. I think we're in the right place.
Yes. So each officer drove to block the ends of the streets, with one officer seeing a figure dart between the cottages.
Okay.
And so he stopped to wait and watch.
Mm-hmm.
He wound up hiding in the ditch across the street.
Okay.
So at 2:10 p.m., Martin received a phone call from ABC News reporter that was randomly calling businesses to try to get more leads on the unfolding story. So they were just throwing darts, hoping they were going to get something. And they were like, hey. And he was like, what's up? My name's Jamie.
That's what he said?
Yeah, he lied about his name.
Okay.
And she asked what was happening, and Martin simply said, lots of fun.
Shout out Jamie. Hope he listens to this episode. Or you're Jamie. I guess she could listen to this episode too.
Yes. So he told her that if she called again, he would shoot his hostage.
Okay. That's a lot of pressure on the reporter.
Yes. So backup finally showed up a little while later. It was 2 more officers, and the standoff began. One of the new officers hid in the ditch next to that
other officer?
First officer. Yep. Watching the cottage Martin had holed up in. Martin continued to shoot in their directions from various weapons from the second story of the Seascape cottage. At 3:30 p.m., the first negotiation calls were made. Several more calls were made throughout the afternoon and evening, and Martin insisted that he was treating the hostages well, making them food and tea, but he wanted a helicopter to take him to Adelaide or he was going to shoot the hostages.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, there's a bunch of people in this house.
But is there? Or is there just the one guy?
There's just the one guy.
Okay.
He, in the Case Files podcast, they actually have audio from one of the hostage calls, and he's like, I gotta go. This kid is really whining, and I gotta go take care of these hostages. Yeah.
Okay.
So special operations officers showed up around 9 p.m. Martin was still shooting randomly from the house the entire night, with an excess of 150 shots fired from multiple weapons.
Okay. So ammo's not a problem.
Nope.
Okay.
At 8 a.m., the 29th of April, 18 hours after Martin arrived at the Seascape bed and breakfast, the cottage was set on fire by Martin, starting in the upper floors. The fire spread slowly while Martin was still firing shots. 30 minutes after Martin set the cottage on fire, Martin finally walked out of the house with his own clothes ablaze.
Okay.
Yep.
He really likes setting things on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was yelling at the police to come and get him.
No, sir, we're just going to let you burn. That's fine.
No, he was tackled and distinguished.
Okay.
It's nice of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was then escorted by heavily armed special ops officers to a nearby hospital, which is the same one at which his victims were being treated.
Oh, that's probably fun for them.
They had to isolate him.
No shit.
In a separate room.
Yeah.
And apparently, while he was there were people that were applying for security guard positions that were just going to kill him.
Okay.
Yeah, there was at least 2 people that they found that were just going to
relatives of an injured person or a victim.
I don't know, but they found 2 people that were going to take vengeance out on him.
Understandably so.
Yeah. So after they put out the cottage,
oh no, she lost her spot.
I did. It's because I had my anxiety pen at the ready.
Yeah.
But I didn't underline anything. And I'm almost done. Aren't you proud of me?
So proud.
So after the fire was put out at the cottage, 3 more bodies were discovered. The owners of the Seascape had been determined to be murdered before the shooting rampage even started. And the man he kidnapped was murder number 5 that Martin had killed that day.
Okay.
35.
Okay, I was going to say 5.
Sorry.
There. No, you're good.
Nope, 35 people.
That's a lot.
So when police searched Martin's house, they found more live rounds and an additional gun. And when questioned over the course of the following days, he said he didn't know anything, that he was surfing at Port Arthur.
Oh, he thinks he was surfing the whole time?
Yeah.
Oh.
He told the police he was surfing the entire time.
He's like, if I take the surfboard, it'll be a perfect alibi.
Yes.
Because he's such a prolific surfer.
Yes.
Okay.
So after the court sent a psychologist to evaluate him, Martin was found competent to stand trial. He was not schizophrenic, but he did have intellectual disabilities. He was sentenced to 35 life sentences and over 1,000 years for over 70 various other charges.
Okay, that seems fair.
Yep. At the end of his rampage, 35 people were dead and 23 people were injured.
That's crazy.
So this event spurred bipartisan agreement, despite small groups of right-wing conservatives. You think I'd know how to say that by now.
White-ring conservatives.
Right-wing conservatives who were against it, and obviously the gun lobbies were against it too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was bipartisan. It was agreement to implement gun reform in Australia. Within 2 weeks of the massacre, the Prime Minister at the time created the National Firearms Agreement to limit the sales of supplies of weapons, set out minimum licensing, registration, and safe storage requirements. Applications were set to have background checks and a cooling off period. Safety training was introduced, and applicants were required to supply a, quote, genuine reason for owning a gun, and self-defense was not a good enough option.
Okay.
So you had to have a good reason.
Yeah.
The agreement also included a buyback scheme to remove privately owned weapons, allowing gun owners to surrender newly banned weapons without legal consequences. During the buyback, more than 650,000 firearms were surrendered and destroyed.
That's a lot.
Yep. Within 2 weeks of this massacre.
Now illegal weapons at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was not the first mass shooting. There were other mass shootings, but they were like kind of around the world.
And this was more, close to home.
Yes. And so when it happened, it'd been building up for a while.
Uh-huh.
They had loosey-goosey gun laws the way that we have loosey-goosey gun laws. And Tasmania had the worst. And some buddy in the government was like, it's going to take us shooting in Tasmania before something like this changes, because it was
I don't think that was his motivation behind it.
No, but that's just because Tasmania was so notorious for their loose gun laws.
Yeah.
That they were like, this is the place it's going to have to happen in before we do something to change.
Yeah.
And they did. 650,000 firearms were surrendered. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until It wasn't until 2023 when Australia finally agreed to establish a national firearms register.
It's very recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have one. And we have mass shootings.
Like a national register for it? Well, I meant I didn't know where.
I think we're supposed to register like pistols and things like that.
Yeah, there's got to be, there's registered firearms, so there has to be
but there's unregistered firearms.
Yes, 100%.
They have flea markets where there's weapons for sale, just like at giant garage sales, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that is the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania.
Because I'm not a true crime person like you, have never heard of that once.
I have.
No shit. That's the whole point of this podcast. I don't know if this is probably your first time tuning in over there with episode 130, whatever. Yeah, I don't consume this on the daily, but yeah, I've never heard of that. But that makes a lot of sense that it would take something like that to change the way an entire country feels about gun laws.
Except for ours.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we're pretty callous to it here, unfortunately.
It is sad.
Yeah. But that's terrible. Thanks for
throwing us to the wolves.
Yeah, you're like, what? Let's find a country's worst. Let me guess. Next time's going to be Europe's worst mass shooting. Is that your next topic?
No.
Oh, thank God.
I do know Europe's worst mass shooting, though.
Great.
It happened in Switzerland, I believe. One of those northern countries.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Switzerland, but it was something like that. Sweden.
You could lie to me And I just nod and agree because, I don't know.
It's one of those Nordic countries.
World War II kind of overshadows most horrible things in Europe. So,
yeah.
So they kind of takes the cake in terms of worst mass anything.
That is true.
Yeah. It's so yeah, I don't know what the worst mass shooting is, but I know what the worst thing is.
The worst mass murder.
Yeah. Yep.
The world's worst mass murder.
It was not one person and one gun, but yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna cover the Holocaust.
No, yeah, there's podcasts for that, I'm sure, but
I'm sure not this one.
No thanks.
Shallow dives.
Yeah, yes.
All right.
Yeah, perfectly shallow.
Sources?
Yeah, and if you made it this far,
congratulations.
See, I remember that part.
Good job.
Thanks. Oh yeah, you can do some sources. I like when I don't have to edit them in at the end. You also have a fuzzy on your mic that's been bugging me the entire time.
It's from Ula laying on it.
Yeah, when our mics went into the corner of shame for a year. Well, yours did. I used mine to play video games.
Mine's like squished on one side, and
yeah,
it's seen better days. Covered in cat hair.
Sources:
Wikipedia, Port Arthur Massacre, nma.gov.au, Port Arthur Massacre, and Case File Podcast Episode 45, Port Arthur Massacre.
There wasn't a single semicolon backslash in that.
Nope.
Anyway.
Would you like me to add one? HTTP.
Nope.
S.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
My shirt's falling apart here. Just got caught on itself. Anyway, yeah, we'll try to do these more frequently than once a year, but no promises.
Hopefully another pet doesn't die.
Yeah.
That was really sad.
Bean. She seems fine. She's breathing over there.
Yeah, she seems all right.
She's just ready for dinner.
It was a rough week. Bird had died of heart failure. Cats ate lilies.
Oh, and back in June of 2024.
It was hard.
Yeah. That's our life update. That's all you get.
Yeah. That's really all that's happened. I went into recluse mode after that.
Stop clicking your anxiety pad.
Okay. Sorry.
People are like, all I heard at the end of the episode is click, 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 click. Yeah, perfect. That's great. ASMR podcast. Anyway, hopefully you hear from us again in 2025. Thanks for listening.
No promises.
All right.
Bye. Oof, that was terrible. Thanks for listening to our terrible podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at TMSTpod.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at Tell Me Something Terrible.